There's a reason why you keep feeling pulled towards the same type of man, even when you've done the work, even when you can name the pattern out loud. And it has nothing to do with discernment, intelligence, or self-respect, or craving chaos, or being unable to choose well. Those explanations are lazy and they keep the real mechanism hidden. The truth is simpler and much more unsettling. Your nervous system learned what love felt like inside a threat environment, and it associates familiarity with safety, not because it enjoys danger, but because danger was predictable. Predictability, even when painful, is something the body can organize around, and the organization becomes attachment. What you call chemistry is not desire, it is recognition. It is your body encountering a familiar emotional landscape and responding automatically. The same way muscle memory responds before conscious thought ever arrives. The pull you feel is not about alignment, depth, or fate. It is about a system that learned to stay alive inside of instability, and it now mistakes that state for connection. This is why the attraction feels immediate, why it feels supercharged, and why it feels important before it feels safe. Your body is not asking, is this good for me? It is asking, how do I survive here? And until that pattern is interrupted at the level that it was formed, trauma will keep being your type, not because you want it, but because your system has not learned yet another way to feel oriented in relationships without bracing. I hate to break it to you, but this episode is not going to comfort you. It is going to dismantle the story you've been telling yourself about chemistry so you can stop confusing familiarity with truth. I'm Megan Webster. I'm an abuse recovery coach, a trauma-informed strategist, and a woman a narcissist hopes to never meet twice. This is the Narcissist Worst Nightmare podcast where survival ends, shadow becomes power, and you rise into the woman who cannot be manipulated, magnetized, or replaced. This episode is dedicated to the pattern you keep calling chemistry, not so you can analyze it into submission, intellectualize yourself out of it, so you can see exactly how it chooses for you, how it slides past your standards before you realize what's happening, and what actually breaks the loop instead of keeping you stuck in awareness without change. Here's a little soul punch for you. Attraction is not choice, it is conditioning. Most women believe attraction is preference, something personal, intuitive, that it says something meaningful about who they are and what they want. The belief feels empowering, but it quietly keeps women trapped because it places attraction in the realm of identity instead of physiology. Attraction is not actually a conscious choice. It is a nervous system response built through repetition long before logic enters the room. It's formed in environments where the body learns what closeness costs. It develops in childhood and early relational dynamics where love came with conditions, unpredictability, or emotional consequence. Those experiences are not remembered as stories, they become states of being. If love came with unpredictability, your body learned to stay alert. If affection came with withdrawal, your body learned to pursue. If closeness came with emotional volatility, your body learned that connection required endurance and effort. These lessons do not disappear when the relationship ends, they become the filter through which attraction now operates. This is why men who are stable, consistent, and emotionally available often feel flat. Your nervous system does not recognize them as meaningful yet because they do not activate the pathways built through survival. Calm does not register as connection. Ease does not register as depth. Urgency gets mislabeled as desire because urgency once meant engagement. Chemistry does not mean alignment. It means your nervous system has recognized a pattern it already knows how to move inside, even if that rhythm leads to collapse. Trauma does not make you want pain. It makes you fluent in environments where pain was familiar enough to navigate. Your body does not wait for your standards to weigh in. By the time you say you don't know why you like someone, your system has already marked him as relevant. That decision happens beneath language, reasoning, and conscious awareness. It happens through cues you don't even track on purpose, tone that carries emotional distance, timing that creates anticipation, confidence paired with inconsistency, interest followed by ambiguity. These signals activate pathways built that you learn to monitor moods instead of relax, anticipate reactions instead of rest, and stay oriented to someone else's emotional weather instead of your own internal state. This is why chemistry feels like it hits fast. It bypasses discernment because discernment lives in cognition and attraction lives in your body. You do not feel pulled because someone is aligned. You feel pulled because your system recognizes the terrain and knows how to function inside it. This is the part that most women do not want to hear. Awareness does not stop this process. You can understand your patterns intellectually and talk about them often and still feel the pull in your body. Knowledge does not retrain attraction. The nervous system only learns through repeated lived experiences that someone else can hold you. This is why standards collapse under chemistry. Standards are conceptual until they are embodied. When your body is trained to experience safety without activation, logic will always lose to familiarity. Most women do not consciously choose the pattern. pattern. They wake up inside of it. It does not announce itself as danger because danger would be easy to avoid. It presents as intrigue, depth, intensity, a sensation of being seen quickly in a way that feels rare. You tell yourself you are being open-minded, that you don't believe in judging too soon. You convince yourself that this time is different because you're different. Meanwhile, your boundaries still soften without a decision being made. Discomfort gets explained instead of being honored, and curiosity replaces decisiveness. This is not weakness, it is a pattern doing exactly what it was designed to do, which is keep you engaged without ever giving you solid ground. You are not choosing harm, you're responding to a nervous system pull that formed long before you had language for it. Once you see that as a pattern, continuing it becomes a nervous system choice rather than an unconscious slide, not a moral failure or a character flaw. The work shifts from finding better men to becoming unavailable to the pattern itself, even when it feels magnetic. Unavailability here is not avoidance. It is the moment you pause instead of pursue, stay present instead of chasing, and let sensation move through your body without converting it into a strong action. That pause is not passive. It is the most active form of power that you can actually have. So what is the exact cost of calling it chemistry? Chemistry sounds romantic. It sounds like fate. It sounds like something that should be honored, not interrogated. But what you are actually honoring is a physiological reaction that bypasses your values and negotiates your standards without asking permission. Chemistry makes you patient when decisiveness would have protected you. It makes you curious when grounded evaluation would serve you better. It makes you hopeful when the data is already telling the truth. Over time, you begin organizing yourself around preserving the feeling instead of assessing your reality. This is how women end up in relationships they later say they never would have chosen consciously, because the choice was not conscious, it was somatic. As long as it is labeled chemistry, the power stays outside of you. When it is named conditioning, your leverage returns. And this leverage is not about shame, it is about interruption. Once a pattern is named accurately, it can no longer operate invisibly. I once had a client who told me she could not understand why she kept ending up in the same romantic dynamic. Different men, identical outcomes. Each connection began with intensity. She felt chosen quickly, and then something subtle would shift. Communication would thin out, consistency would fade, and she found herself waiting, adjusting, and questioning herself. When we slowed the pattern down, the truth surfaced without the drama. She was not choosing men, she was responding to emotional unavailability that felt familiar enough to engage. Distance registered as depth. Effort felt meaningful. Anxiety masqueraded as attraction. Nothing shifted for her until she stopped asking why the scenario kept happening, and she turned into herself and asked her body what love required. That question changed everything because it moved the work out of analysis into responsibility without blame. Once she saw the requirement clearly, she could not stop meeting it. This is why Sacred Standards Dating Reset exists, not as a solution you consume, but as a structure that teaches your body something new through repetition. Patterns do not break because you decide to stop them. They break because you practice something else long enough for your nervous system to actually trust it. Neutrality feels wrong before it feels safe. Slowness feels empty before it feels grounded. Without structure, most women return to what activates them faster than what holds them best. Sacred Standards Dating Reset is not about becoming stricter or colder. It is about becoming unavailable to what destabilized you so attraction can finally move through discernment instead of bypassing it. That is how patterns truly end, not through force, but embodiment. There is a belief that once you understand the pattern, it should stop working on you. That belief is seductive because it flatters the mind. It makes you think insight equals immunity, but it does not. Your nervous system does not operate on insight. It operates on evidence, not what you know, but what happens to you when you do not obey the pull and nothing bad follows. Breaking the pattern does not feel empowering at first. It will feel empty, like you are standing still while something inside you screams that you're missing the moment, wasting your chance, letting something important slip away. That urgency is not truth, it's withdrawal. It's your body demanding the familiar stimulus it learned to use to regulate itself. When you do not respond, when you do not lean in, when you do not explain, chase, or soften, your system panics briefly briefly because it has not yet learned to feel alive in another way. The panic convinces most women that they're making a mistake, and they call it intuition or regret, or they call it fear of intimacy. It is absolutely none of those things. It is a nervous system that has not yet learned that safety can exist without intensity. The moment the pattern breaks is the moment your body experiences stillness without punishment, where you let the urge pass without turning it into action, where you discover that not following chemistry does not result in abandonment, collapse, or a loss of worth. The moment itself is quiet and deeply uncomfortable, but it's the beginning of real freedom. This is why many women say they keep ending up with the same man with a different face and a different name, even though they know better. Knowing does not stop the reflex, only repeated non-participation does. Most people try to control attraction the same way they control a bad habit, with rules and willpower and self-talk, promises made late at night after the damage is already done. This approach fails because attraction is not a habit, it is a survival imprint. Your body learned very early what love required from you, whether closeness demanded vigilance, whether affection came with strings, whether being wanted meant being useful, quiet, impressive, or emotionally available on demand. Those lessons did not form in language, they formed in sensation. So when you try to override attraction with logic, your body does not comply. It searches for the familiar because the familiar feels survivable, even when it hurts and even when it costs you. That's why a lot of people will feel ashamed saying things like, "I knew better, but I still want him." That sentence assumes wanting is moral failure. It is not. It is your conditioning doing its job. The shift happens when you stop trying to control desire and start changing what your body associates with safety. This requires practice, not resolve. You need to stay present long enough for your system to register that nothing explodes when you slow down, that calm does not mean danger, that consistency does not mean boredom, and that steadiness does not mean you're settling. And this is where the Sacred Standard Dating Reset does its quiet work. It is not a list of rules, but as a structure that holds you inside of moments that you would normally override yourself. It will teach your body through repetition that alignment is not something you earn through effort. It is something you allow by not abandoning yourself when things get quiet. This is how your attraction ideas shift. Not overnight, not dramatically, but it will affect you permanently. So when you're doing the inner work and when the trauma pattern loosens its grip, many of my clients worry that something essential will be lost. They fear becoming numb, boring, flat, disconnected, that there will be no more passion in their life. What actually disappears is the chaos. So what replaces chemistry is not indifference, it's a clear mind. It's the ability to feel interest without urgency, curiosity without self-betrayal, desire without contraction. You will begin noticing how your body responds after interactions instead of during them. You care less about sparks and more about how you feel when you leave. When connection stops hijacking your nervous system, it integrates into your life instead of dominating it. You no longer confuse being activated with being alive. You no longer chase emotional intensity to feel chosen. Dating becomes optional rather than compulsive, not because you stop wanting connection, but because connection no longer determines your sense of self. You do not disappear inside of it. You do not organize your identity around it. You fully intact. This is the point that trauma cannot cross. Trauma actually requires urgency, confusion, and self-abandonment. And once those are gone, the pattern has nothing left to feed on. If this pattern stripped something away from you, that was intentional. Romanticizing chemistry keeps women trapped far longer than violence ever could. It disguises conditioning as destiny and calls self-betrayal passion. That pattern does not end when you meet the right man. It ends when you become unavailable to what destabilizes you, even when it feels magnetic. You do not need to fix your attraction. You need to stop obeying a reflex that was built to keep you alive in a life you no longer live. Please share this with another woman who needs it. Hit follow so you do not miss the next one. And if you want to practice choosing differently instead of just understanding your patterns, Sacred Standards 30-Day Dating Reset is where that work becomes embodied. The link to join us is below in the show notes. We start on January 15th. This is the Narcissist's Worst Nightmare podcast, where survival ends, shadow becomes power, and you rise as a woman impossible to magnetize, manipulate, or replace.